With the state of today's economy, it is more important than ever to invest in products that last for years to come. As the seasons shift and get cooler, make sure your closet is stocked with durable layers that stand the test of time from American Giant. American Giant's clothes work harder and are wearable season after season. Their greatest hoodie ever made is made of the highest quality materials that are cut and sewn right here in the United States. So you're investing right back into your local community. Choosing American Giant means taking a stand for American manufacturing and hardworking Americans, something other mega corporations don't care about. From fleece to knit, all in a range of colors for versatile daily wear, American Giant delivers everyday pieces designed for everyday life. Feel the difference of quality made-to-last clothes from American Giant. Get 20% off your first order with code STAPLE20 at american-giant.com. That's 20% off your first order at american-giant.com with code STAPLE20.
Welcome to Witchcast!
'Cause it's Witchcast.
I'm Emily.
I'm Kate.
And we're your co-hosts of this, the Witchcast podcast.
That's right. We're your learning, growing, ever-evolving novice witches here to explore everything under the woo-woo, esoteric, spiritual umbrella.
And what a lovely umbrella it is. Bedazzled, truly.
It is jeweled. It is shining in the rain. Like, you know when it's raining, but it's also sunny out?
Yeah. It sparkles in the sun, it shines in the rain, and in a sun shower it also looks great. And today we have a very special guest.
That's right. We're so excited. Oh, we're really, really excited to bring this very special guest to our studio. I'm going to keep leaning in on that.
Yeah. The Very Real Witchcast podcast studio, which is, it's on the astral plane, but it does exist.
It is. It's totally on the astral plane. She is a fairy seer and a very powerful sorceress. Please welcome to the show, Rose Aurora.
Wow. Rose, thank you so much for being here.
I know, we should have, I should put in canned like applause, like right here.
Yeah, we should do way more sound effects on this podcast. Right now we're at basically 0 sound effects.
You gotta get the sound effects, the soundboard.
Yeah, we should definitely have that.
Especially because today we have you here, Rose. You are a fairy expert.
Oh my!
Right? I mean, let's talk about.
Well, relative to us, absolutely. We don't want to over,
I don't want to oversell you.
But
we have been.
I'll let it happen. I'm just sitting back, letting you go.
We'll just praise you and talk about. So you specialize, I should say, I guess, in fairy and elf related issues and spiritual needs. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Correct.
Amazing.
Definitely.
So our previous guest, Scott Richardson Reed, who you guys might remember from our Scottish folk magic and folklore episode, he very generously recommended you, highly praised you, and we're so happy to make the connection and have you on the show. So, tell our listeners a little bit about yourself. How did you first get involved with magic and sorcery in the first place?
Yeah, well, first of all, shout out to Scott over
Scott.
at Kaliak's Herbarium.
Yes.
He's super nice. We actually know each other through my Trolldom mentor, Johannes Gordbeck.
Nice.
So that's kind of how I know Scott, and he's super nice. So shout outs to him.
Hi, Scott.
Hi, Scott. So as you mentioned, first and foremost, I am a fairy seer. I've also referred to myself as a fairy worker because not only do I see them, I work with the fair folk. I've been in relationship with them for many years, and I have the training and capacity to act as an intermediary between fairies and humans. I am proud to be part of a sorceress lineage of Celtic origin, which is my fairy tradition and what I consider to be my main tradition. Also, as you mentioned, I'm a sorceress, I'm a magical practitioner, and a practitioner of the Scandinavian system of magic known as Trolldom, which I was just talking about.
Yes.
I was formally trained as an apprentice in Trolldom under Johannes Gordbeck. He's a wonderful teacher, and he has a book out actually called Trolldom, Spells and Methods of the Norse Folk Magic Tradition, which I highly recommend, especially if people are interested in Trolldom and learning more about that and about the, kind of basics of the tradition. I dabble in some other fun stuff as well, but those are kind of my main traditions and what I'm known for. As a spiritual worker, my main focus is helping people with fairy, elf, and troll related troubles. I conduct readings, healings, spell work, and I also teach and mentor people myself.
Love that.
As to the kind of origin story and how I got into all this, that is definitely a little bit of a difficult question to answer because I can say some things, but I have a lot of secrecy taboos that I have to adhere to when it comes to my main tradition, my fairy tradition. But I can say a few things. The absolute simplest answer is that I was actually born into it. There's basically never been a time in my life where fairy wasn't a part of it. And as I mentioned, my fairy tradition is of Celtic origin. It is a closed tradition, one that isn't explicitly named or known to the public the way some of the, sort of traditional witchcraft lineages and covens and things like that are known, like Cult of Sabati and things like that. It's a much more quiet, sort of private tradition. But those who are familiar with traditional witchcraft, whether it's kind of in a coven structure or lines of family lineage, will probably be familiar with the idea that there are quite a few lineages and traditions that exist completely hidden from outsiders and the public. The Trolldom I can speak a little bit more to explicitly. I was drawn to Norse and Germanic practices quite a few years ago, initially because of the elves, as well as having some ancestral connections to those practices. I had already had experience there because of crossover training with my fairy tradition and interactions with beings I would classify as Ulfad or elves. And from there, I was brought to the gods, or as seer, as we call them, as well as other spirits in Norse practice. And then I met my teacher, Johannes, and he became my mentor in the Trolldom tradition, and I studied under him as an apprentice. So that's kind of the nutshell.
Very cool.
Nice.
That's so cool. That's so cool.
And we'll have to add his book to maybe next year's book club, next season's book club.
Oh, you have to. It's fantastic.
Yes. So, oh gosh, I have so many questions running through my head. Okay. Well, I want to ask a follow-up question. So you say, as a magic practitioner, you refer to yourself as a sorceress. So can you speak a little bit about the difference? I'm going to throw a new question at you between the difference, how you feel about the word witch versus sorceress, or sorcery versus
we're getting
witchcraft.
into the spicy question
already. I know. Sorry, I threw a wrench already in the beginning. Just curious your thoughts. Yeah,
it's a good question. So, oh man, where to even start? So I mean, obviously, I can only speak to what my traditions and what my perspective is on, the terminologies and things like that. Obviously, there are a few different terminologies I use to describe myself publicly. Fairy seer is obviously one that I use to sort of be an all-encompassing term to mean somebody who sees fairies, who works with them, things like that. There are, of course, other terminologies within like the Celtic languages and things like that. But fairy seer, because for me, that just kind of encompasses everything. From my perspective, that's what I use for that. And then sorceress, okay, so my whole thing with the word witch, I tend to, what I understand about that word is definitely a very, what I would call traditional perspective on that word. The idea of the witch is somebody who is either not fully human or not human at all. Somebody who has been changed by spirits to become more like them, or is born as one of the spirits, essentially. That's kind of, I know that word has evolved quite a lot, especially in the last probably 40-something years, something like that, or probably longer. I don't know the exact timeline on things like when Wicca became really popular and things like that. But, obviously it has kind of transformed in the popular view of that word to kind of just mean a spiritual practitioner or a magic practitioner. For me, like that the word witch has a very specific connotation. It's not the same as somebody who's just a magic practitioner. It's somebody who is, changed, or was born with sort of non-human, or partially inhuman qualities, to the soul. And so, because there are connotations that come along with that, even from the traditional, well, definitely from the traditional perspective that I'm talking about, I tend not to use that word publicly, just because just because it has a lot of baggage, I guess. Yeah. So I generally kind of tend to go with sorceress to denote that I practice magic, that I have certain types of relationships with certain spirits, things like that. That's sort of, I guess, it's one of those things you could discuss for hours on end, right?
Yeah.
Like,
100%. I feel like everyone we talk to has a different take and a different feeling about it, and it's like, I think it's really worth talking about, but there is no final answer in a lot of ways, except for
it's such a
your own
choice,
answer.
Yeah. But I love your explanation. I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I love it. That's really fascinating.
Yeah, and it's so contextual. Absolutely. It's true. It's like what is a
witch?
I
mean, that's the thing is, again, like, the word has really kind of morphed into something completely different than sort of, what somebody, from even the 1600s understands the word witch to be. In a lot of cultures, still today, being called a witch is an insult. In a lot of cultures and a lot of places, to this day, so I think that's kind of why I don't really use that term. And the thing is too, is when it comes to terminology and what, type of practitioner, quote unquote, I know your listeners can't hear me, but I'm making air quotes, can't see me, but I'm making air quotes. The terminology is that, there are terms my spirits use for me, privately, that even I don't, tell people publicly, or I don't tell even my closest friends. It's between me and my spirits. It's between me and, the spirits of my tradition and the people of my tradition,
Oh, I'm so jealous. That's so cool. You have like a secret club. It's so neat.
So
you have friends.
Club.
So for our listeners, today we're going to focus on, I don't think we said this on the podcast already, but today we're going to focus a little bit more on fairies, the fair folk, and specifically what, Rose, you do. But we talked about maybe having a part 2, either this season or another season in the future, to really focus in on the troll work too, which I think is,
yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
if we get
so
to
much.
everything now, great, but it's such a big topic that I think, don't worry, we'll come back to it.
I totally get it. It's a lot.
And so on that note, I would love to get your take on, or from you, what are the fair folk exactly? What are some misconceptions people have about fairies, fairy work, who or what they are? Give us the overview. Give us the 101.
I would be happy to. So at its most basic definition, at least, again, speaking from my perspective, fairies are a supernatural race of beings with magical abilities / powers. Fairies come in many shapes and sizes. They're often described in folklore as well as anecdotal accounts throughout the ages, as looking almost entirely human. Though there is usually something about them that tips you off to the fact that they are not actually human. Sometimes this tip-off comes in the form of a deformity or physical abnormality, such as having hooves instead of feet, things like that, a display of magical or telepathic ability, or even just a strong feeling by whoever is experiencing the interaction with the fairy being in question. This feeling or vibe is often accompanied by or completely described as fear, oftentimes. I would say one of the biggest misconceptions about fairies, that's kind of an obvious one, since it's really kind of permeated pop culture and games and things like that, is the idea that all fairies have wings, pointed ears, and are small. While some fae beings can and do appear with wings, this now widespread image of diminutive beings, sort of devoid of serious power, is one that arises mainly from the Victorian era, via the lens of the theater and artwork contemporary to the time. as well as the spiritual system of theosophy, which was pioneered by Madame Blavatsky. Before the good people were diminished in size and power, they were feared and respected by the cultures from whose folklore they emerged, namely the Celtic regions, including Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and the Isle of Man. Most cultures around the world have supernatural beings resembling fairies, though. They're just usually kind of some cultural differences and, specific cultural names for those beings. The elves being one of them, they're kind of, in many ways, considered sort of the Scandinavian or Germanic equivalent of fairies.
Gotcha.
Another typical misconception is the idea that fairies are just quote unquote nature spirits. The notion that fairies are just nature spirits or elementals mostly, again, comes from theosophy and Madame Blavatsky, as well as Victorian and Edwardian ideas around what fairies are. Within that theosophy framework, Blavatsky basically lumps all fairies into the category of elemental or nature spirit. She also believed them to be entirely intangible and without any physical form at all, which definitely actually goes against the older folklore of fairies within the Celtic countries. Whilst, various types of fairies often enjoy and can reside in more rural or natural areas, there are some important distinctions to be made between the fair folk and just spirits of the land. For example, nature spirits are often bound to a particular place or feature of the landscape, like a tree or a rock or a pond, and for the most part remain in those areas, while the fairies can go wherever they want, generally, usually. And there is overlap, and nuance, and, just as people, how I was kind of talking about witches are people who can be transformed by spirits or spiritual happenstance, I guess you can say, so too can spirits be changed or assimilated into other communities of spirits and things like that. So again, there is that overlap and nuance. Along a similar line, another common misconception is that fairies are all just human dead. This comes from a few different things, and in truth, again, it is a pretty nuanced subject. Within the folklore, it's true that human dead can be seen amongst the fairies or residing in fairyland after they die. Some of them seem to be forced there, while some seem to have chosen to be there. There's also an association with fairies and the human dead because of burial mounds. Within the Celtic countries, burial mounds are known as places where fairies either live or use as a kind of doorway into the world of fairy. That being said, it is wise to keep in mind that not all the fairy mounds are burial sites. Additionally, other places that are known as fairy sites aren't burial mounds at all, such as certain trees, caves, other ancient monuments and sites, things like that. There is also evidence in the folklore, as well as anecdotal accounts, in which fairies are described as having never been human. So while, again, kind of like the nature spirit thing, there is some overlap with human dead, it would be an enormous oversimplification to say that all fairies are just deceased humans.
Fascinating. Okay. Makes sense. So, okay, follow-up questions. Mm-hmm. So, first of all, going to the etymology real quick, the naming. Fair folk, fae, fairies. Is there preference for how you like to refer to them? The good people, I know you also said. What is the correct term when you're talking about these beings? So the whole thing with the naming thing, the word fairy, in a lot of places that is considered to be a bit of a sketchy word, I guess, for lack of a better term, because sometimes the fairies themselves don't like that word. And the idea is that you should use euphemisms for them. Some of the ones I've used, obviously, are the fair folk or the good people, the good neighbors, the gentry, a lot of nice little names that are considered more polite than saying fairy. And the whole idea is that because fairies can make themselves invisible at will, if one is passing by you and hears you talking about them and you use a word that they don't like, it could offend them. So the idea is, use nice words that they will like, but also things like, the good neighbors, the good people, things like that. It's also
it also serves as a reminder to the fairies themselves of what they can be to us. Because obviously, if we say, "Yeah, you're my good neighbor, you're the good people," that's kind of showing them, "Hey, I think you can be nice to me, right?" Right?
Right.
So that's
Yeah,
kind of
I love
where.
that.
Now, I granted I use the word fairy a lot, and so if you feel brave enough to do it, do it. But in this case, most people I tell like don't do as I do. In this case,
Yeah, well, you have a special relationship.
I'm living on the edge here.
Yeah. You have an in. um, okay, next question. You said so, and please forgive me if this is like such a ignorant question. I mean, it is an ignorant question. I'm very ignorant. So you said that some of them can and do have like hard physical form. They can turn invisible at will. Do they live on this? Do they live on this plane? And you said that they are Celtic in origin, but they can kind of go wherever they want. So, can they travel at will? Every culture you mentioned like kind of has their own similar spirits or beings, but that maybe slightly vary in nature and are called different names. But so I'm just kind of like trying to like, I guess, my mortal brain is like, I don't understand. Like, are they ghosts? Like, are they spirits? Are they entities? Can they just kind of like go wherever they want to be? When you work with them, even though you're not in, the UK right now specifically, but you can still physically work with them where you reside across the ocean. Like, is that, I don't know. Can you talk me through that a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a perfectly valid question. Yeah, they definitely, obviously there are circumstances, that can occur in which a fairy can't go a certain place or, I don't know, is trapped somewhere or something like that, just like with, any kind of spirit. But in general, fairies can go wherever they want. They can decide, I want to be here now. I want to be in fairy. I want to be in the physical world. The other thing too, on that note, is that, again, as you mentioned, that I mentioned, most cultures have something resembling fairies, or something that is the equivalent to fairies. So not only are they just kind of already everywhere, there is also the fact that spirits can travel with humans. When people leave a certain region, a certain country, they come to another one, their spirits don't just abandon them. I mean, maybe some do, but or they stay, some stay put. But I think there's kind of this pan-cultural idea that I can definitely attest to just from experience, that spirits will follow the people of their culture, to different places and sort of, okay, we're here now, so the other thing too with the physical form, because I know that is definitely something that kind of boggles some people's minds a little bit. There's definitely evidence within the folklore of them doing things that really wouldn't be feasible without a physical body. One that comes up a lot is that they have children with humans. And when we are talking about, I had sex with a fairy and now I'm having a human baby, or I'm having a fairy human baby, they mean it literally, that they're literally having a child, a physical child. They use weapons in the folklore. They kidnap people and bring them into fairy. That's a pretty prevalent one across the Celtic regions as well as Scandinavia. With the elves, is that they steal people, they take them into their world. Sometimes there is, especially once you start to get kind of into the changeling lore, there is certain circumstances in which, a fake person or something that is glamored to look like a person is left behind, but other times they're just straight up taken away and you don't see them again. So clearly they have the capacity to do physical action. There's also stories about people bringing things back from fairy when they visit the world of fairy or fairyland. There's one story about a boy who goes to fairy, and when he returns, he brings back a golden ball which he gifts to his mother when he comes back. Actually, the oldest Irish myth that has fairies in it involves a fairy woman giving an apple to the son of the King of Ireland. She also physically moves him from a boat, takes him off the boat, and it's said pretty explicitly within that story that she is physically moving him. And there's other stories of the good folk giving humans physical items as well, like herbs and jewelry, weapons, so the stories describe those things being passed to the human by the fairy's own hand. So these are all kind of things that point to them having a certain physical anchor in this world that maybe other types of spirits don't have. And I can say from personal experience, they can be extremely 3D. Yes.
Wow.
So, terrifyingly so. And I think it's interesting. There's something called the fairy census. There's actually 2 of them now, which are put out by Dr. Simon Young. And it's basically a catalog of people's anecdotal accounts of meeting with fairies. And you will see some pretty wild stuff, even just reading through that. Especially some of the more interesting ones to me are when people meet somebody who they go, oh, this is a human, or they're just like not really thinking it's any kind of weird experience, but then something happens. One of those signs that I mentioned earlier happens. They show a telepathic ability. They can hear what the person is thinking, or some other strange display of magical power, some kind of weird physical abnormality. Their eyes are black. They have hooves for feet. They have a hollow back. That's one that you see in Scandinavia with this one type of female forest spirit, is that she has a hollow back like a tree.
Wow.
So all kinds of interesting stuff. So they, in the folklore and from my own experience, they can definitely be extremely physical.
So cool. I feel like I have so many questions. We sent you this long list, and
I'm
get
like
to them.
gagged right now. I'm gagged. Wait. Oh, sorry. I have one quick follow up, and this is like such a stupid question, but I just had a thought.
There are no stupid questions, only stupid people.
Honestly, so true. But continue.
Well, I'm about to get real stupid. Do you think people who say that they've encountered guardian angels might be actually encountering good people, like encountering fae?
I think it's possible. Yeah, I definitely think so. There are definitely some anecdotal accounts, as well as, myths and folklore, in which I'm going to come back to this other thing too. I'm having an ADD moment. Sorry.
Yeah, please.
Welcome to the club. Yay!
I just have like 7 things pop into my head. I definitely think that, and I think that can be said for a lot of different types of spirits, even just like in the work that I do with clients. I've seen people who are like, well, I had this experience and I think it might be this. And then I take a look at it myself, consult with my spirits about it. It's like, well, actually this is what's going on, and that can happen, either way, where somebody's like, what is this? Okay, it's a fairy. Or they go, is this a fairy? Well, not actually, it's this, so that's not something that I think is exclusive to fairies. I think you see this too, like maybe this is a controversial subject to bring up, but like, I think there's a lot of interesting overlap in this kind of context with like the UFO stuff and fairies. And there's a lot of, I won't go too into it because there's a lot of other people who are really focused on kind of the overlap between fairy lore and UFOs, like Jacques Vallée and Joshua Cutchin. But, that's definitely something where people kind of go, is that a fairy? Is that an alien? Is it an angel? Right. There's also the
my mind's blowing up right now. Keep going.
I know there's a lot. There was also the Fatima. I think this isn't like my whole forte or anything, so I might be getting some details wrong here, but there was like a vision that a bunch of children, I think it was in South America, and I think they're calling it something, the Fatima vision or something like that, and it sounds like a fairy. But all these kids were like, oh, that's the Virgin Mary. So I mean, Google that if you want to check out some weird stuff.
Exciting.
So kind of,
Yeah, I feel like we've got like I have to first of all like end this episode and then go read like 400 things because you're giving me a great reading list. And the best
now I'm like, was Jesus a changeling? Was Mary knocked up by a fish? No, I'm like kidding. Wasn't an alien? Oh, I'm gonna need a
don't go down the rabbit hole. We don't have time.
Episode.
You really will. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, there's a lot that's quite strange. You will definitely be hitting up the tinfoil. I can guarantee.
I have a million questions, but I feel like I'm asking too many. Emily, you ask one.
Okay. I want to move on to our next question on the list. Which is how do you like to work with the fair folk? And I mean, I guess we talked about how it started. So how do you like to work with the fair folk? Or what is it you do broadly with our good neighbors?
Yes. So of course the ways that I interact and work with the good people is based upon my main fairy tradition.
Yes.
So it's not something that and because these beings, again, are found in a lot of different cultures under different names, things like that, it's not all going to be one sort of homogenous practice. There's variations between traditions and cultures and things like that.
Totally.
There is an emphasis within my tradition of learning directly from spirits in addition to incarnate teachers. So being taught, initiated, and recognized in specific ways by the spirits is definitive to our lineage. The relationship between the incarnated members of my tradition and the fair folk is not what I would liken to something of, say, some of the grimoire approaches in which quote-unquote fairies are conjured and commanded the same way a goetic magician might conjure and command a demon. That's not, and to be honest, I don't really recommend those practices. I have, that's a whole tangent unto itself, but, people who are interested in the types of fairy beings that I'm talking about, and we're kind of focusing on here, I wouldn't recommend those routes. I think it's a great way to get your ass handed to you, to be honest. But, via my tradition, the relationship with these spirits is one of kinship and veneration. There's also a strong emphasis in my fairy tradition of what I would call star worship. The stars are of utmost and in many ways central importance. The stars are seen not only as what I call big spirits or deities, but also kingdoms, wherein various other spirits that are kin or emissaries of the star themselves reside or are born from, which of course includes fairy beings. My main tradition is also a sorceress one, so it's not strictly religious or just veneration, but the focus is also upon cultivating the personal sorceress power of its incarnate members. The good people are teachers and allies in these sorceress endeavors and spiritual progression. So again, you can kind of see a difference there between somebody who's doing the grimoire stuff of, I conjure you up and you're my servant, or whatever, commanding, in my tradition, it's more about kinship and veneration, and allies and teachers. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Do you mind going a little further? Because I feel like, from what I've seen, at least online, and there's a lot of noise and chatter, of course, about the good folk and fae, it's hard to cut through, I think, a lot of that. So from someone who is a bit more learned in this practice and like born into this, because I feel like on one hand, what you're describing seems very similar to what different practitioners would kind of incorporate working with, say, different saints or gods or goddess worship, or working with different gods or patron saints or whatever. But I also think there's a, from what I've seen at least, it's like there's a practicality aspect to working with the good people. Like there's actually physical. Whereas I sometimes, and I mean, oh gosh, I don't want to sound at all like, I don't want to offend anyone, but I feel like sometimes a lot of working with the gods or goddesses, it's a little more ephemeral. You know what I mean? And am I right in kind of that assumption that I feel like working with the good people, there's a little more like like tangible, like we said, like they can take like physical form, like there's a little bit more tangible aspect to it. Is that right?
I definitely think you're right, at least from the perspective of my practice and the tradition that I come from. Yeah, there's definitely, again, like it's not just a religious practice. It's not just veneration, which, none of that is bad. Like,
Right.
that's totally awesome. But it's just, there is definitely a focus, again, as I said, on the individual living members of this tradition to cultivate their personal power. And so, yeah, I think you're right. I think there's definitely, it's not just like, well, we'll just give an offering and see what happens. Now, granted, this is, how do I say it? I think people, though, that maybe that perspective, people who don't have the same experience that I've had, should be cautious with. Like, for example, I flat out tell people, like, unless you're actually being harangued by these beings, or you have some sort of ancestral tie to it, things like that, like, you're better off most of the time staying away. Just because, it's kind of like getting involved with organized crime. Like, once you're in, good luck getting out. Getting out with all your limbs intact. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, which I don't say these things to like fearmonger people or gatekeep, quote unquote. I hate that term already, but like, that's something people might bring up. But it's not because of that. It's because I genuinely don't want people to get hurt. These beings are not. Yes, there is overlap with human dead being brought into fairy. Humans being sort of assimilated into fairy, kidnapped, or choosing to go there, things like that. But in the end, fairies are not humans. They don't have the same thought process. They don't have the same morals. They don't have the same view or value placed upon human life that a human will. So their ways are their ways. And so it's one of those things where people shouldn't assume that just because things are done a certain way in human society, that's how it will be done in fairy, because most of the time it could be quite the opposite, So, did I answer your question? I feel like I got
Yeah, totally. Oh, so one thing I wanted to make sure we get to talk about is in terms of like I don't know if you would call it services that you offer, but like what you do for other people. Mm-hmm. I know that you said you've done some work with fairies, elves, and trolls broadly, but like when people have sort of a problem where you kind of can come in and mediate, and I'd love to just talk about like what that looks like, or like what it is. When should someone call you, for example, and how would you help them?
Gosh, who should call me? Usually I get, again, like as I was kind of saying earlier, I do get people who suspect that they have some issues with fairies, or they just have fairies around them and they're not quite sure if they should interact, if they should, how they should kind of approach this stuff. But I also do get people who come to me who have, just a regular haunting, of like a human ghost, or, other types of spirits, essentially. And what can be helpful about coming to somebody like me is I can take a look at something and go, well, yeah, it is fairy or elf problems going on. So here's how we should take care of that, versus, no, actually it's, you're living on top of a cemetery at your house or something, there's a lot of dead people.
Aren't we all?
Yeah. Aren't we all? Yeah, exactly. But I mean, it is really common, I'm not going to lie, to have ghost problems. So, that's definitely something where I think, anybody who suspects they might have some of those issues that are specifically non-human beings, like fairies, elves, trolls, things like that, it can be definitely a good idea to go somebody who's a specialist in that, such as myself. Because again, like, even though that is my specialty, like I have no problem helping people with other problems, like with the dead. I pissed off a deity. What do I do? How do I fix this? Things like that. Like I don't just limit myself to just fairy issues or reading on fairies or things like that.
Well, I would imagine too, also with your wonderful, legion on your side of the good people that you work with, you could also call upon them as resources too to help you and aid you in your practice as well, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's
so cool.
I mean, that's I guess, probably the most important aspect of somebody who is working as a fairy seer or something similar, is that you have to have those connections and be able to mediate between fairies and humans, or elves and humans, non-human beings. So yeah, definitely. And my spirits are definitely, an important part of every step of the way, basically.
I love it. You're like a spiritual litigator.
Yeah, I'm not even kidding. Like I've joked about that. Like I'm like a lawyer.
Yes. Yes. Oh, you should get a billboard.
I know. That'd be hilarious.
I want to, before we ask for you to pull a card, I don't know if you work with any sort of like oracle or tarot cards or anything sort of that.
And if not, we have decks, don't worry.
I want to ask one more question that may be a little open-ended, but going back to the kidnappings, what are some like broad guidelines or warnings like you have for folks? Because I feel like I see this a lot online of like, oh, well, if you suspect fairies, put out an offering of this, or like if you see this, don't put out little fairy houses in your garden because then they'll come around, or like lots of like urban legend type of comments, especially online. And
yeah, I kind of want to like run through the whole list of everything I can think of fairy superstition.
I mean, because quite honestly, selfishly, like I bought these cute little silly fairy houses from a dollar store, and I just put them in my garden just for decoration because I think they're cute. But I definitely was like scared too, because I was like, is this gonna bring fairies into my life? I don't want them. So if you come across a circle of mushrooms or stones in a forest, is that a fairy circle? Should you not walk through it? Like, are you in trouble? Can you walk through some of these popular myths and
or
help
facts
or facts and help us like debunk them or not, like true or false? I don't know.
Yeah. So the fairy ring thing is definitely real. So like for those who don't know, it's basically a ring of mushrooms found naturally occurring. And the idea is that the mushrooms are what is left behind in a place where fairies or elves have danced. It is definitely considered unwise to step into these rings. Even though, it's kind of considered that when the mushroom ring is there, the fairies probably aren't there anymore. The fairies are the elves, because elves are also known to dance in rings and leave behind these mushroom circles. So, but I don't recommend stepping into those. I would suggest, if anyone stumbles across one, that they just simply leave it alone and be on their merry way. Because there are some stories, even just within the folklore, about people stepping into those. They're taken to another place, or it's sort of a trap, things like that.
Getting
so
stuck.
It's kind of one of those things where it's just best to leave well alone.
Gotcha.
I'm trying to think of like
the little what about the little houses? Like if you build like that's also a popular trend, putting those in the woods or putting them in your garden. Like obviously, like you said, good people are not actually diminutive in size. So is that actually a risky thing
some
to
are.
do?
That's the thing is like some are small, but some are also gigantic, bigger than people. A lot of the times in most of the folklore, they are usually human size or maybe just a little shorter. But the other thing too is that they are master shapeshifters. They can change their form. At least I would say the majority of them can shapeshift. So, one might, roll up on you one day being like 3 feet tall, and then the next day they're like 7 feet tall, so, that can definitely happen. I don't recommend those things. I don't recommend those fairy doors. I don't recommend the fairy houses. I mean, here's the thing. If you just buy a little thing at the dollar store and stick it in the garden, you're probably fine. But I've definitely seen people... I hate to shade somebody publicly, but the other day I saw somebody who actually had a fairy door tattooed on them.
Ooh.
That really, I went, oh, that made me cringe so bad. I was like, don't do that. So
that was permanent on you.
Yeah, that's a little more extreme, but I wouldn't recommend it. I mean, the thing is that, you know, maybe they, even if they don't, if you buy a little fairy house or something like that and you put it somewhere, and even if they don't come and live in it, which they probably won't, to be honest, you are still doing something that could be seen as an invitation. The fairies, um, they're really good with semantics. You may have heard some stuff about, being cautious about.
This was going to be my next question.
Yeah. Okay. Being very cautious about how one speaks to or about the good folk is very important. You have to be on your best behavior, your best manners when interacting with them. You must keep your word, never lie to them. We talked about the naming thing, not using the word fairy, things like that. They don't lie, but does that mean that they can't deceive you with their words or twist things to be a certain meaning that is true, but not what you thought they meant? Yes, they are masters at that. And so, doing certain things or saying certain things could be construed as, oh, well, you're inviting me to come hang out, aren't you? So I caution people against, things like that.
So offerings would also be probably not a good idea. Don't bother.
That's a slippery slope in my opinion, because there are people in the Celtic countries who even to this day are making regular offerings to the good folk, and that is acceptable, obviously, as it's done by the people of these cultures. Not in the sense that they are putting out offerings and going, hey, I want to work with you magically. It's just regular people, and the reason why that is done is to placate these beings. If you give them something and ask that they don't, harm you, harm your family, steal your child, put your hair in knots when you're asleep, ride your horse overnight so it gets really tired, which is it sounds funny, but that's actually like a well-known thing that fairies do, is like ride your horses all night and tire them out. So then when you go to ride your horse, it's like, why is my horse like half dead right now? But yeah, so I mean, if people want to do an offering practice of just setting something out and saying, this is for the good folk, I would like there to be friendship and peace between us, totally fine. However, that is also a way to start getting their attention. If somebody's leaving you gifts all the time, eventually you're going to be like, that's interesting. I'm going to go check this person out. And that is really one of the ways that I don't want to say encourage, because I don't encourage people to just be approaching these beings willy-nilly. But at the same time, if somebody is telling me like, I really want to do this, I really want to reach out to them, that is kind of the first step, is making some offerings. So again, it's one of those things, it's kind of a slippery slope. Yeah, you can do it and just kind of hope that I don't want to interact with them, but I'm hoping this will keep them from ever really doing any harm to me, or mischief. Just because, they might, it could be the gamut of serious harm to just kind of annoying pranks and things like that. So,
but then you can't stop.
Yes, actually that's it's good you bring that up, because the thing is that once you start making those offerings to the good folk, you have to do it forever. If you stop, they will just take what they feel they're owed. Which, some people,
they are a mafia. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a protection racket, basically. Like, you set out, okay, if I give you this, you won't hurt me. But yeah, like, that's actually one of the protocols, is that if you start making offerings to these beings, you have to do it pretty much forever, because they will, if you don't and they're used to it, they're just going to start taking it. And it sort of goes back to some of the Irish myths of the Tuatha Dé Danann and the Irish gods. And when they went into the mounds, since they went into the mounds as well as the fairies. Well, the fairies were already there, but anyway, the gods had basically made a bargain with humans that they would receive a certain portion of the harvest. And so because the Tuatitanen also live in the mounds, it's sort of assumed, well, the fairies are owed this portion of the harvest as well. The harvest, quote unquote, the what they consider to be their due. So, once you start, you have to really decide, like, do I really want to start this? Even if it's like a preventative, quote unquote, practice of like, well, if I do this, hopefully they won't bother me. Well, yeah, but you'll probably also get their attention eventually. Maybe not. Maybe they'll not care, but that is one way to get their attention. So,
yeah. Okay, I have one more, and it's I've always heard that with the semantics thing, it's about like gifts and gratitude. Like if they bring, or like if you feel that you've gotten something, to not say thank you, or like, but to instead be like, I appreciate this, or something like that.
Yes, that is definitely a thing. So, in fact, it's one of the most important guidelines that I tell people, that a lot of people are kind of familiar with, but I think they don't really know why it's a thing. Not using the actual phrase "thank you." It's better to reciprocate a gift or favor that a fae being does for someone, or at the very least say something like, "That's very kind of you," or "I really appreciate this gift." This whole thank you thing kind of traces back to the etymology of the phrase "thank you." Originally, that phrase meant owing a debt to somebody who's above you in station, usually like a royal or a noble. So that's kind of where people have sort of, I mean, it's not a, for sure thing, but it's sort of traceable back to that, essentially, is the idea that there's also the idea that saying thank you might imply that they're kind of beneath you. Rather than like repaying somebody for something nice that they do, you can just kind of wave it off and say, "Oh, well, thank you for that." It's sort of, because reciprocity is definitely a huge thing. I would say with a lot of different types of spirits, but definitely with the good folk. They will never forget a debt. They expect that when they do something nice, that you'll do something nice back, even if it's just, giving them an offering or something like that.
Whoa, I did not know that. That is good to know.
Yes.
All right, possible dangerous territory here, but if someone decided they did want to leave an offering, in that case, which we do not necessarily recommend.
Yeah.
Let's say their horses are exhausted all the time. Are there specific offerings that are, or is there like tiers of offerings that you would recommend, or is it like?
Some of the traditional offerings are milk or cream, honey, butter, bread. The good folk are also known to really like things that are very beautiful and like beautifully crafted. There is sort of, and you may already be aware of this, but there is this idea that iron and steel are not really liked by the good folk. Not true of all of them. Some of them are metalsmiths and blacksmiths and things like that. So iron doesn't affect them. But some fairy beings are affected by iron. So, don't give iron or steel. But silver or gold or copper or something like that. Things that are very beautiful and beautifully crafted. But usually the traditional offerings are like dairy products, things like that.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And I would not suggest, like, if somebody is going to start a practice like that, I would not suggest giving offerings, unless there's some special case going on where they have to do it more often. But if it's somebody who's just like, can I curse on this?
Of course. Yeah, absolutely.
I know I said like something earlier, but I was going to say, like, if somebody's like the fuck around and find out type, right? And they're like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to start offering to the fairies. I would not suggest doing offerings more often than like once a month at most. Some people would recommend, like quarterly or only on certain holy days. I know, like my friend Sfinga, she's from Serbia, and when we've talked about fairy lore, in her culture, there's like fairy offerings and activity and stuff like that around saint days. So based on your culture, if that's a thing, if you're Serbian, maybe do that. But no more than once a month to start, please. I beg of you. Because again, like you have to keep this up, and if they start seeing a pattern of you doing this all the time, they're going to expect you to keep it up. So
don't want to go bankrupt on bread and cream in 3 weeks.
Exactly.
Yeah, I just know my
With the price of
ADHD and
groceries these
laziness, I would
days?
not be able to keep it up. I can't start.
See, yeah, I mean,
Just ignore me, just like everything else in my life. I just want to fly under the radar, please. Thank you.
very understandable.
Okay, I have a million more questions, but I feel like we should do maybe a part 2 and maybe a part 3. This was fascinating, Rose. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let's pull a card. Do you use, I think I saw in your services you might use cards. Do you use cards at all in your practice?
I do. To be honest, I'm kind of interested to see what decks you guys have, though.
Well, I have a deck in mind that Emily has that might be perfect for
Oh,
this.
my Druidcraft one?
Yes.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Here, I have this Druidcraft tarot that Kate
It's a
very kindly
Celtic
got
deck.
for me.
Oh, cool. I think I've seen this one before, maybe.
Yeah, it's okay. So it's by Philip and Stephanie Carr-Gome and illustrated by Will Worthington.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I think it's like, it's like Druids. So it's like Western pagan tradition, Wicca and Druidry is what they say they do. So, but
I thought it was Celtic. I'm sorry.
no. I mean, it's they're in the same sort of.
I mean, the whole thing with druids is like nobody actually completely knows what they were up to,
Yeah,
So
they're a
we're all
mystery.
kind of guessing,
Yeah. All right. I've got the Two of Cups here. Two of Cups.
Oh, nice.
And we've got like
that's a lovely card. What a
Yeah.
lovely
It is
card.
a card.
See, I think that's why I think of it as Celtic, because the art is very...
Yeah. They've got a lot of like
Definitely.
kilts and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I think that they did like a sort of an overview of like the UK and Ireland in a way, but like I think it works. It's good. It's cool. Like
got
art is
a,
art. It's great.
He's got like a green tartan going on.
Yeah, it is. So the card for our listeners, we'll put a picture of this on Instagram as well. But so it has like two. They look like they're probably lovers. A lady in a long blue dress and a guy in sort of a tartan kilt type thing / sash around his shoulder, and they are like doing that thing on the anniversary where like you each have a cup but you like swap arms.
Yeah, you
link the arms. Yeah.
Yeah.
You cheers and you drink from the other.
Yeah.
hand. Yeah.
And then she's got sort of like a wispy belt thing. All right. That is my brilliant
That's a
description.
beautiful
Here,
description.
I will read you what the Druidcraft Tarot deck actually says about the Two of Cups. Just
We should
because
also have an
someone
episode
sat
about
down and wrote
druids.
it, and yeah, totally. It's as Rose correctly said. I feel like people don't know that much, but like I would love to like do some reading up or find someone who does know as much as is possible to know. Okay, here we go. Two of Cups. Love, healing, meeting of hearts, reconciliation. Meaning, the power and experience of love, creative blessings that result from the meeting of hearts, a romantic relationship or any meeting of hearts, minds, and souls, the union of opposites or polarities, using the power of love to heal, to engender cooperation, or to effect reconciliation. What do we think?
Works for me.
Yeah. I love how it's just like key phrases. I think this is the card that everyone wants to get when they get the lovers. Like they think that this is that card. But ooh, God, I keep hitting my microphone today. I'm so sorry, everyone.
That's okay. It doesn't sound too bad in here, so.
Oh, good. I can hear very loudly on my own. It's just like Animal from the Muppets today. But yeah, Two of Cups is a love. So if you, listeners, if this resonates with you, if you're looking to embark in a new relationship, romantic endeavor, partnership, I think this is full
It's a
of
great sign.
potential.
Or you're just trying to like cheers with your bud, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't have to necessarily be romantic.
Little meeting of the
arm
minds
linkage.
over a couple of chalices, you know?
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
I love it.
Rose, how can folks find you, work with you, hire you, bring you into their homes to help work with the Fae?
Yeah, I have a website, roseauroras.com. There you can find some more info about me and my services, as well as get in touch via the contact form on there. I'm also on Instagram, which is just at Rose Auroras. And I'm also on TikTok, which I'm only just kind of dipping my feet into. I haven't used a whole lot, but we'll see what happens. I'm Rose_Auroras there.
Nice.
I know this episode will probably go up after the fact, but on March 24th, I have an online presentation for the Salem Witch Fest. It's called In the Mounds and of the Stars, the Elves in Scandinavian Lore, Practice, and Myth. But even though it'll be after the class has already happened when this comes out, folks should be able to purchase the class recording on salemwitchfest.com.
Nice.
And there's all kinds of other really awesome classes going on during that weekend too. So check that out. But yeah, that's where you can find me.
I love
That's so
it.
cool. Emily, we got to we have to go to that Witch Fest next year.
I know. I was just
miss
thinking that. I was like, I can't believe we have every year we're like, we should like go to some festivals and stuff. And we should go to some events.
hit
And
the
things.
road.
And we literally
They're also doing one in Salem, Massachusetts, later this year. Like this one, the one that's coming up is like fully in person. And I think that's like in August. So you guys still have time.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well,
road trip.
Yeah.
Amazing. That's awesome. Well, we'll also be sure to link all of your accounts and your website on our Instagram at Witchcast Podcast, as well as on our website at witchcastpodcast.com. And you can, I was going to say you can listen where you're listening now. But if you like this while you're listening, leave us a little review, a little rating, a little 5 stars. It helps other people find us, and it means a whole lot to us. And, maybe we'll be good neighbors to you.
You better be.
Exactly.
and until next time,
Hex yeah!
'Cause it's Witchcast.